everybody. Yesterday, I woke up to a great surprise. I hit 10,000 subscribers, which is just crazy that 10,000 of you guys went, I enjoyed this guy's stuff enough that I'm going to click that subscribe button and watch more of his videos in the future. Thank you guys so much for watching, subscribing, commenting, liking, sharing, and just all in all being a wonderful group of people, some of you wonderful friends that we've been able to talk movies and TV over the last year and a half or so. With that in mind, I'm going to do a series of videos kind of celebrating hitting 10,000 subscribers. I got a number of ideas. I think I'm going to do a video where I tell my story, some different types of videos looking back over the last year and a half. I'm not quite sure. If you've got some ideas for what I should do for hitting 10,000 subs, tell me down below in the comment section. The first video of this series I thought I would do is this one, a little bit of Killer Flicks Tag. Now, if you don't know what this is, that's a Facebook group over there where we talk about horror movies, slasher movies, that sort of fun stuff. One of the people over there, actually the guy that invited me to the group, was Cody Leach, one of my very good friends here on YouTube. They're doing a little bit of tag where they got a set of 14 questions that you have to answer, and then you tag someone else to answer them. Cody Leach tagged me.
Now that that's over, my 4 victims. Now I'm going to try to pick people that I know at least have some knowledge of horror movies, otherwise it's going to be very awkward, and they're probably not going to bother doing this. So I'm going to choose Sean Chandler, because I know he's got some horror knowledge that he doesn't want to admit to.
And asked me 14 questions about horror movies. So with that in mind, to start my 10,000 subscriber celebration where I'll be answering your questions, all sorts of fun stuff. Here I am. I'm going to do a little bit of Killer Flicks Tag. I got 14 questions right here on my phone because I don't have the ability to remember things like this. I'll probably have trouble reading it too. I have bad old man vision. So here we go. Question number 1, who is your favorite vampire character performance, etc., etc. in a killer flick? I'm going to go with the same answer that Cody went with, and I'm going with Blade. Blade is actually my personal favorite, and that's for an answer that'll actually be a recurring theme throughout some of my answers on these ones, is I'm a big fan of action movies, I'm a big fan of martial arts movies, and so when you combine action martial arts with vampire, blood showers, all that fun stuff, that's my thing. That's a very nice little sweet spot for me, and so Blade, played by a great charismatic fun actor like Wesley Snipes, pretty quickly comes to the top. When I think about vampires, you know, I don't naturally gravitate towards the kind of the classic, old school Christopher Lee stuff. That's not my thing. I definitely don't go Twilight Zone on it. And even, you know, the Anne Rice Interview with a Vampire, not my thing. Wesley Snipes as a vampire that kills vampires, that is right up my alley. So that one pretty quickly goes up to the top. Also written by David Goyer, and I'm a big fan of a lot of his work. So a bunch of different things. David Goyer, Blade is the one that comes to mind for me immediately. Question number 2, what was the very first killer flick that opened your eyes to the world of horror? I don't know. I couldn't tell you which one was the one. There's not like this aha moment, but I'll give you 5 different movies really quick. So the first 2 that kind of come to mind would be Friday the 13th, Part 3 and Part 6. For no particular reason, it's 3 and 6, other than those are the 2 I remember watching late at night after my mom went to bed and I was on TNT or TBS, one of those channels, and I was like, I'm going to try and watch one of these scary movies by myself. And so I know I watched Part 3 a lot way back in the day, and I know I watched Part 6 a lot. And those were the 2 that made me go, oh, you know, my mom trying to scare me out of not watching scary movies. I actually enjoy these. I'm not scared. These are just kind of weird movies where people get killed. I kind of like them. So those are 2. Predator, same situation. Oh, while mom's asleep, I'm going to sneak down and watch Predator late at night on TBS or TNT, once again on cable channels. I love that one. That one kind of freaked me out a little bit, but because I watched it, you're probably too young. But Predator comes to mind. And then the last 2 would be Jason X and Freddy vs. Jason. Those are the 2 where I was like, hey, if you go and see a wacky slasher movie with your friends, it's a ton of fun. Like, that's what I didn't do that when I was in high school. It was like after high school, those 2 movies came out. I went with friends to go see them. Had a blast watching those 2 movies. So I was only supposed to say 1, and that was 5 spread over like a span of 8 years or so. But those are kind of the markers that when I think back on killer flicks that kind of had an impact on me. Number 3. What's a really standout geographical setting for a killer flick? I.e., the thing is set in Antarctica. Any really memorable and anyway, couldn't read the last part of the one. Geographic settings. Just generic forest seems to work really well for a lot of different types of movies. When I think about the ones that kind of stand out to me, Friday the 13th, Camp Set Out in the Woods, Cabin in the Woods, Evil Dead movies out in the woods. That isolation just kind of works. There's a movie that came out in the year 2000 called Versus. It's a Japanese martial arts movies about the undead going after some prisoners, and so they're in the woods. It has the isolation, it has the horror aspect and martial arts aspect, that recurring theme that will kind of come up several times in this, and you just sense that isolation. Even like a movie like You're Next, there's kind of in a neighborhood, but there's trees all around it, and they just give you this sense of what's out there, and it's kind of scary. I mean, if you've ever been in the woods at nighttime, even when you know you're safe, you still don't feel safe. And so then when you know and you're watching a movie that there's a guy out there killing people, it just adds that extra layer. So I don't have a specific one that comes to mind, but when I think what's that ambiance for a killer flick, the woods are the one that comes to my mind. And even go to the movies that I mentioned before, Friday the 13th, 3 and 6, The Woods, and Predator, The Woods. So that's one that just pretty prominently comes to my mind. Number 4, what killer flick are you embarrassed to say you love? I don't tend to be embarrassed for the movies that I like, because I just don't function that way. If you like what you like, we're just all wired differently. So even the idea of guilty pleasures, I don't tend to think that way. If I were to go along the lines with these, woo, sorry about that, would be Jason X. I really like Jason X. It probably goes back to, I just had so much fun with Jason X when I saw it with my friends. I saw it at a dollar theater. It's the first Friday the 13th movie I saw in the theaters, and it was just so much fun to see it with my friends there. It's such a dumb, bizarre movie that I just had a ton of fun with. And so that's the one that if I were to say something that perhaps I should be embarrassed or feel guilty about, it would be that one, but I don't feel guilty or embarrassed by it at all. There are a lot of killer flicks out there based on true events. Do you have a favorite, and how accurate do you think that story is? Yeah, probably Army of Darkness, the journey of Ash and his travels to the past. That's pretty well documented. And, him fighting the undead with King Arthur. That was very, I don't know. I thought about this one for a little bit. I didn't have one that came to mind at all of a one based on true events. And I don't know if that's just because I'm tired and have from a long day of work or whatever, but none came to mind. So I don't have one that comes to mind, unfortunately, for you. What director would you like to see crossover franchises and make a killer flick? Crossover franchises. I'd love to see the guy that did You're Next do more good horror movies. Friday the 13th is one that's actually kind of listed in the question. Just having his sensibilities, put a little bit of better characters and craft what he did with Your Next. So I'd like to see that, though. I mean, after death, though, maybe I don't want to see him do more of those. I don't know. I might have misread this question. There might have been a different question if they wanted to have someone cross over from a different genre into horror movies. Either the guy that did The Raid with Gareth Evans, or the guy that did John Wick. One of those. If some of these guys that, to my recurring thing, that are really good with action and vibrant, kinetic, violent action came in and did a horror movie, like a slasher movie. I've got this sort of even idea in my head of the genre blend of what that would look like, to have this very awesome action with a Jason type character, with a Michael Myers type character that is unstoppable. I've got thoughts in my head of what that could be like. So that was my other direction to go with that one. Number 7. I don't know even why I did that. That's not, you can't even tell what I'm doing. What killer flick movie was the toughest watch? Toughest watch. I filter pretty good. I've got a pretty good idea what I would get to make it through. Just reading the plot description and details of the Human Centipede movie was a tough read for me, so I just skipped over those ones entirely. For a long time, I wouldn't watch the Saw movies because I knew enough about them and read the descriptions. I'm going to skip over that. I can't really think of one that I actually watched and sat through that I was like, this is tough to get through. There are a couple things in the Saw movies where you're just watching the one where the guy's in the thing and it's rotating his arms around. That was pretty tough to get through. I'm actually very squeamish in real life when I see actual blood, actual injuries, even people getting nosebleeds. If people tell me a story about an actual injury, I can have like a panic attack and it wakes me out. And it goes back to my childhood. And I saw like someone having plastic surgery on a TV show one time and it wigged me out. So one time watching the trailer for Darkman, not even the movie Darkman, as a young child, there was a scene where like a mask is being removed, and the way the mask was being removed reminded me of watching someone have plastic surgery, and it triggered a panic attack, and I don't know whatever happened, I wigged out, and I think I might have even passed out from watching the trailer for Darkman, if you want to know about how my wacky brain works. But I can watch really violent movies. And like having now watched all the Saw movies, I've watched through all the Saw movies. There was nothing in the Saw movies that I couldn't watch. Not all of it was fun to watch. But so I don't even know how my brain gets triggered off and goes wacky on me. Number 8, who's your favorite killer flick final girl other than Jamie Lee? That would be Jamie Lee Curtis from the Halloween movies. I'll go with 2. I'll go Sidney Prescott from the Scream movies. Scream movies are my favorite scary movies. Those are the scary movies of my high school years. When I was in high school in 96 to 2000, Scream 1 through 3 came out. 96 to 2000. So those are the movies that defined kind of my high school years and what horror movies were, with kind of this meta sense of humor. There was a bunch of knockoffs. I enjoy a bunch of those too, but Wes Craven did it the best. And then I enjoy the 4th one as well. So Sidney Prescott from those ones easily comes to mind. And then I don't even know her name, but the girl from You're Next. I love You're Next. I just huge, enormous fan of You're Next. That's the type of movie that when I saw it, that I thought this is a movie that I would enjoy making. The sort of movie I would conceive of making. So if you've ever wondered what type of movie would Sean make, that would be a type of movie that I would conceive of that would entertain me or would enjoy making. Even in that, the way kind of the third act plays out and what she's skilled at goes back to that kind of I like action and someone that takes the bad guys on. And you see that in the movie You're Next, and that's why I don't even remember the character's name, but that's a character that I would enjoy that type of character. Number 9, which killer flick has scarred you for life? Which killer flick has scarred you for life? None. I don't actually really get scared by movies. I've never really been scared by movies. Like, I got a little bit spooked or unnerved by Predator when I watched that first time. I remember that one being like, should I go wake my mommy up? Like, because I was young. But I just don't tend to be scared or weirded out by movies. Meet the Feebles. It's not really a horror movie, but it's pretty unnerving nonetheless. Man Bites Dog. It's not a horror movie once again, but it's like a kind of a pseudo documentary movie about a serial killer, and it's pretty unsettling stuff in it. Clockwork Orange had some elements. Well, obviously Clockwork Orange has some unsettling elements. That one had a little bit of stuff but it's more that type of thing where the subject matter is just so dark that when you're putting kind of like the person you're following in the story and supposed to sympathize for is a monster. That some of that stuff when it's psychological and weird and like, I don't like what you're making me, the way you're making me feel about this is just total creeps, and the way we're being nonchalant about rape and stuff like that. That stuff does, but that's because I'm a normal human, not because I was scared or scarred by a movie. Number 10, what killer flick has the most killer soundtrack? I'll go back to the Scream movies that I mentioned before. They all kind of, at least 1, 2, and 3 all had great soundtracks. I had them back in the day, and that's the music of my high school years, like loud rock music. Even like Scream 3 has an extra Creed song called Is This the End or something like that.
So, is this the end for us, my friend? So, is this the end for us, my friend?
I loved that song back in the day and would listen to that one all the time. And that was like this is back in the day before, iTunes and where, every song by an artist you have easy access to on YouTube. Back then you'd have to buy the soundtrack to it to get some of these B-sides and these extra songs. Is they're like, oh, I've got it. I've got this cool extra. Have you checked this one out? That tells you how old I am that, I was that excited about a Creed song. But so those ones, kind of the ones that come to my mind. I remember the Faculty having a good soundtrack too. Maybe just a couple songs on it I remember distinctly. There was Another Brick in the Wall. There was I don't think it was Alice in Chains, but I think it was the guy from Alice in Chains or something like that did a cover. So I remember that, and they shot the Faculty around where I live. And one of my good friends, actually a groomsman in my wedding, and the guy I still get together with very regularly, he actually is in it. There's a close-up of him in the movie.
The students at Harrington High have always suspected their teachers were from another planet.
Is this going to be on the test?
This is the test.
And so I have a sweet spot in my heart for the Faculty, too. So the soundtrack actually comes in there. Anyway, you asked about the soundtrack, and I went off on my friends. Number 11, what is the single greatest kill in a killer flick? I got to go back to Jason X. The one that just comes to my mind is towards the end of the movie. It's not even, this is such a cheater answer too. Towards the end of the movie, and they're trying to distract Jason, and so they put a hologram in front of him, and two college girls run up to him and go, we're out here to have premarital sex and do drugs. And then the movie cuts away, and when it cuts back, he has each one of the girls in a sleeping bag, and he's just banging the two sleeping bags together on the ground. And I just thought that was the funniest thing I'd ever seen in my entire life. It's Jason just smacking two sleeping bags together like that. So that's the one that comes to mind. And there's a couple other things like that. I think in the Jason reboot from 10 years ago, there's some similar stuff where there's someone in a sleeping bag who lights on fire or something like that. Anything involving a sleeping bag that just plays into the stereotype of people have sex with each other and then get killed by Jason. Anything that's like tongue-in-cheek playing off of that in the Friday the 13th movies, I just think is hilarious. And so those are the ones that come to my mind from that one. Number 12, what do you think is the best performance in a killer flick? Obviously, this guy from Trolls 2.
They're eating her. And then they're going to eat me. Oh my God!
Or this guy from Silent Night, Deadly Night, Part 2.
Garbage day! Huh? No!
I don't really have one that immediately comes to mind. I mean, Anthony Hopkins as Hannibal Lecter in Silence of the Lambs, but I don't tend to have those types of performances. There's just a lot of people go, oh, they're really good in that. Oh, that's a great performance in that. But I don't tend to think best because they're all so different, and I don't really like to pick best with things that are so different. When you talk about performances, acting, to me it is apples, oranges, bananas. I mean, they're all similar. They're all fruits, but they're like, how do you compare sweet to banana? I mean, they're just so different that you can be the best apple and this is the best banana, but they're not the same things. I don't have one that immediately comes to mind that's like my favorite or the best, other than an easy, cheap answer like saying Anthony Hopkins. Number 13, what killer flick horror location would you like to visit? There's nothing that really comes to mind. Here's what I will tell you though. There's some I visit pretty regularly, and there's some that I plan on visiting more of, and that's the Texas Chainsaw Massacre locations. They shot several of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies right around where I live. And I've never seen any of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies. I do plan on changing that this October. I plan to watch all of them and rank all of them. But they shot them around here, and I've never... and so like I started doing some research on movies shot around Austin, and it started giving me these locations of places I go all the time that they shot Texas Chainsaw Massacre at. Like there's one of the places where a house was at from the first movie is right next to a main shopping center in Round Rock, Texas, which is right kind of where all the cultural center is of where I live. I live right next to Round Rock, and I'm there all the time. I drive by it all the time. It's right next to a main road. I deliver paint right there all the time. There's another one that's a graveyard. I'm trying to remember to put the picture up here. I drive by this graveyard about once a week, once every 2 weeks or so. And so whenever I I do my ranking of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies, I'm thinking about going to a bunch of these locations, taking some pictures, screenshots, and all that fun stuff, and posting them on here. But there's not one that really comes to mind that I want to go visit. To maybe to some extent, just because there's so many movies kind of shot right around where I live, you get a little bit kind of, it's just a location that doesn't really appeal to me. So especially horror movies where it's a house. They don't tend to pop out that much to me, so that comes fine. And our last question on here: are there any killers from a killer flick that you sympathize with? I've been thinking about this one too, kind of like that one about the real life killers. I mean, there's ones where you understand where they're coming from, or you can maybe see other sides to it, but not. I actually got one. The Bill Paxton, he directed it, starred in it. Matthew McConaughey, Powers Booth, Frailty. But naturally, if you know the movie, you kind of know where I'm coming from. But this is one that I showed this one to my wife, not knowing she's got like death fears, doesn't really do scary movies, doesn't really do psychological horror type movies. And our first year of marriage, I showed it to her, maybe even on Halloween. And the movie's kind of trippy, and there's kids being involved in killing people, and she wigged out on it. I didn't know what was going on. I was, she just doesn't like this type of movie. Okay, big mistake. Learned that lesson and learned how to put some filters in place before I show her certain types of movies. So that's even why I'm not even more into horror movies, is because I don't have a person to watch them with, generally speaking. But that one, I sympathize with the plight of the serial killer in Frailty, very much so. That's the one that comes to mind. That's the only one that kind of comes to mind on that one. Anyway, there you go. There's my answers to all 14 questions on this game of Killer Flicks Tag. If you're into horror movies, go ahead and check out that link below. The community, you can check it. Tons of discussions. People post stuff all the time. I get involved in there. Cody Leach is really involved. He's like one of the top guys over there. Drum Dum is kind of the top dog over there. So it's a great, fun little environment over there. Now my turn to tag some people. And I got to tag Griffin from Men vs. Movies, and we'll go with Ryan O'Toole. Ryan O'Toole, love to hear you guys' take on horror movies. Get your thoughts on these 14 questions. All you have to do is take these 14 questions, make a video answering them. I haven't heard you guys talk too much about horror movies. I don't know if you have a deep knowledge. I don't know if you have a shallow knowledge. Now I will find out what you guys have to say. Anyway, all you guys watching, if you wanted to throw your thoughts on these 14 questions down below, go ahead and do that. The questions are in the description. Maybe I'll pin a comment there with them. And if you're new to my channel, please consider clicking that subscribe button. I do movie reviews, TV reviews, ranking videos. But the key thing is, I don't want to just talk about movies or horror movies. I want to talk about movies and horror movies with you. So join me down in the comment section, answer some of those questions. Let's have a lively discussion about my thoughts on movies and stuff like that. And as always, thank you for watching.